You know that feeling right before you speak up in a room full of people? That split second where your heart drops into your stomach, your throat suddenly feels dry, and you rehearse the exact sentence 3 times in your head just to make sure it sounds safe, agreeable, and completely harmless. Or maybe it doesn't happen during the conversation at all. Maybe it happens hours later, late at night, when the rest of the world has gone quiet. You lie there in the dark, replaying every word you said, every gesture you made, picking apart your own presence as if you were studying a trial transcript where you are both the defendant and the harsh, unforgiving judge. You wonder if your laugh was a little too loud, if your answer sounded awkward, or if that slight pause from a friend meant they were secretly rolling their eyes at you. It is an exhausting, invisible choreography that so many of us dance every single day. We walk around carrying this quiet, heavy weight, the constant, buzzing anxiety of trying to manage how the world perceives us. If you have ever felt like you are living your life under a blinding, invisible spotlight, constantly modifying your voice, your dress, your posture, and your opinions just to fit seamlessly into the background, I want you to pause right here. Take a real, deep breath. Let your shoulders drop away from your ears. Unclench your jaw. You are not broken for feeling this way. You are not weak. And you are certainly not the only one walking around with this heavy armor on. This hyper-awareness didn't happen because you lack confidence. It happened because somewhere along the way, your tender heart learned that keeping everyone else comfortable was the only way to keep yourself safe. But carrying the weight of everyone else's potential judgment is a heavy, painful way to live, and you deserve to finally be free from it. Think about how much life you miss while you are busy managing your image. Think of the small, beautiful moments swallowed up by the fear of being seen as too much or not enough. You hold back a genuine smile because you worry about your expression. You keep a brilliant idea to yourself because standing out feels dangerous. You stay quiet when you are hurt because you don't want to be labeled as difficult. It is a slow, quiet shrinking of your soul, bit by bit, until you barely recognize the person looking back at you in the mirror. We carry this weight as if it were mandatory, as if living for others were the price of admission to being loved. But real connection never demands that you erase yourself. The people who truly matter will never ask you to carry their comfort at the expense of your own peace. Before we dive into understanding why we do this to ourselves and how we can gently begin to lay this heavy burden down, let's make a commitment right here at the very start of this journey. Take a second right now and leave an affirmation in the comments below. I choose to honor my own voice today. Type those words out, not just as a quick comment, but as a quiet, sacred promise to yourself. Let it be the very first step in laying down the weight you were never meant to carry. Let's take a deep breath together. Leave that promise behind and begin the journey of coming home to who you really are. We spend so much of our precious daily energy performing for an audience that isn't even paying attention. Think about the last time you walked down a busy street, caught your reflection in a store window, and instantly adjusted your posture, pulling your jacket tight because you felt like every eyes was on you. Or think about the time you hesitated to buy an outfit you genuinely loved, setting it back on the rack because a quiet, nagging thought whispered, "What will people say if I actually wear this?" Think about that creative idea, that video, that post, or that dream you tucked away in a desk drawer because you were terrified of what the comment section of your life might look like. In those heavy moments, it feels like the whole world is standing by in a grand theater, holding scorecards, ready to judge your every single move. We walk through our days feeling exposed, as if we are stepping onto a brightly lit stage where every pause is analyzed, every mistake is magnified, and every flaw is broadcast for everyone to see. But here is the quiet, liberating truth that we so often forget. Most people are far too consumed by their own internal noise, their own self-doubts, their own heartbreaks, and their own messy lives to spend their time picking apart yours. The crowd you are trying so hard to appease isn't watching you as closely as you think. They are standing on their own stages, wringing their hands, wondering what you think of them. The harsh critic you hear echoing so loudly in your mind isn't standing in front of you. It isn't the passerby on the street. It isn't your coworker sitting across the desk. And it isn't the stranger on the internet. That critic is standing right inside your own heart. It is your own unhealed fear, taking its own deepest insecurities and projecting them onto the blank, unreadable faces of the people around you. We build elaborate, heartbreaking stories about what others think of us. We look at someone's neutral expression and convince ourselves they find us boring. We hear a brief silence on the phone and assume they are tired of us. We interpret a delayed text message as proof that we aren't worthy of their time. We construct these painful narratives out of thin air, convincing ourselves that their quietness means disapproval and their brief distraction means rejection. But every time you shape your life around what this imagined audience might think, you hand over your joy to a ghost. You trade your lived experience for a phantom opinion. Living your days for an invisible audience only ensures one thing: that you remain a quiet, anxious spectator in the very story you were born to lead. You become an extra in your own life, constantly waiting for an applause that was never coming, while fearing a boo that was never uttered. Imagine how much lighter your heart would feel if you dropped the curtain today. Imagine taking off the stage costume, letting the lights dim, and realizing that no one is judging your performance, because there is no performance to give. You do not owe the world a flawless show. You do not owe anyone an agreeable, polished version of yourself that never makes mistakes or takes up space. The only audience member whose opinion truly shapes your peace when you lay your head down at night is you. When you stop playing to the crowd, the theater empties out. the noise fades, and in that gentle silence, you finally get to hear the soft, true beat of your own heart. We were not born carrying this heavy, suffocating fear. If you look back at early childhood, or watch a young child play, you see the pure, unburdened truth of what it means to be human. Children do not pause mid-laugh to wonder if their joy is a little too loud or unrefined. They do not look down at their clothes and wonder if they are stylish enough to be accepted. They don't rehearse their words, hide their tears, or tuck their wild, colorful dreams away out of fear that someone might find them silly. They simply exist, fully and completely, occupying their space in the world with an effortless, beautiful certainty that they belong. So, where did all of this changing, shrinking, and hiding begin? Where did you learn to trade your wild, authentic self for the quiet safety of fitting in? The truth is, somewhere along the line, the world taught us to measure ourselves. It didn't usually happen all at once in some massive, dramatic crisis. It happened in 1,000 quiet, subtle moments that slowly chipped away at our innate confidence. Maybe it was a casual, offhand remark from a teacher that made you feel small and foolish in front of the whole class. Maybe it was the sharp, stinging sting of a parent's disappointment when you didn't meet an unspoken expectation, or the cold, sudden isolation of being left out on the playground by friends you trusted. In those tender, vulnerable moments, your young mind made a quiet, subconscious contract with itself. You learned a heavy lesson. When I am fully myself, I get hurt. When I am quiet, helpful, agreeable, and perfect, I stay safe. You began to notice what earned you praise and what brought you rejection. You learned to read the subtle shifts in the room, the tired sigh, the furrowed brow, the sudden chill in someone's tone. And you adapted. You started trimming off the edges of your personality that seemed to cause friction. You silenced your unique opinions, tucked away your quirky passions, and turned down the volume of your true spirit just to keep the peace. You began to trade your deep authenticity for a fragile sense of connection, learning to wear whatever mask was required to earn approval and avoid abandonment. It is so vital to understand this with gentleness and deep compassion. The fear of what people think is not a flaw in your character. It is not a sign that you are weak, broken, or fundamentally flawed. It is a brilliant, instinctual survival pattern that your young heart built long ago to protect you from emotional harm. When you were small, belonging was everything. It meant safety, love, and protection. Staying attuned to the needs and reactions of the adults around you was literally how you survived. Your brain learned that fitting in kept you safe from the cold pain of rejection. But here is the gentle truth you need to hear today. The self-defense mechanism that protected you when you were small and defenseless is the very cage holding you captive now that you are grown. You are no longer that helpless child who needs everyone else's approval just to be safe. You have your own strength now. You have your own voice, your own wings, and your own life to build. The protective armor you put on all those years ago served its purpose, but it has grown too heavy, too tight, and too suffocating to carry into the rest of your life. It is okay to thank that young, protective part of yourself for keeping you safe for so long. and then gently, lovingly, tell it that it can finally rest. When someone judges you, criticizes your choices, or looks at you with cold disapproval, it feels like a sharp arrow aimed directly at your heart. It feels so personal, so deeply targeted, as if they have looked through a secret window into your soul and discovered a fundamental flaw that you were trying so hard to hide. In those painful moments, your breath hitches, your stomach drops, and a heavy voice inside you whispers, "See, they are right. You really aren't enough." We take their words, their tone, and their body language and build a monument out of them, treating their opinion as an absolute, undeniable truth about our worth as a human being. But human interactions almost never work that way. When people offer critical opinions, make harsh judgments, or project heavy expectations onto you, they are almost never actually seeing you. They are speaking from the dark, unhealed corners of their own lives. They are reacting from their own unspoken fears, their own hidden regrets, their own envy, and the strict, suffocating rules they have forced upon themselves. A person who was taught that they must always be quiet and self-effacing will often react with anger when they see you speaking up with confidence. A person who gave up on their own creative dreams will often tell you that your passions are foolish or unrealistic, simply because seeing you try reminds them of what they were too afraid to pursue. Carl Jung once observed that everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. When you let that profound truth truly settle into your heart, the entire world shifts around you. You begin to realize that when someone misinterprets your intentions, judges your path, or offers unsolicited criticism, it isn't a final verdict on who you are. It is simply a window into their internal world. Their reaction is a clear reflection of their own emotional climate, their own limits, and their own unhealed pain. It is their mirror, not your reality. Think about how much unnecessary suffering you have endured by carrying emotional baggage that never belonged to you in the first place. You have spent countless sleepless nights trying to solve the puzzle of why someone was mean to you, why someone belittled your joy, or why someone refused to give you the love and respect you deserved. You tried to fix yourself to fit their mold, assuming the problem was your shape, rather than realizing that their vessel was simply too small to hold you. Recognizing the power of projection releases you from the impossible, exhausting burden of trying to manage everyone else's emotional state. You do not have to drink the poison of someone else's unhealed bitterness just because they handed you the cup. You do not have to internalize their fears, adopt their limitations, or shrink yourself to make them feel comfortable with their own choices. Their opinion of you is a statement about them, about what they can tolerate, what they fear, and what they have not yet resolved within themselves. The moment you stop taking their reactions personally is the exact moment you reclaim your freedom. You can look at their judgment with gentle compassion, step back, and leave their heavy baggage right where it belongs, with them. What actually happens when you spend years shaping yourself into whatever form everyone else prefers? What is the real, hidden price of constantly bending so that others don't break, or staying silent so that no one else gets upset? The truth is heartbreaking in its simplicity. You slowly, systematically, become a complete stranger to yourself. You learn to say yes with a warm, polite smile on your face, while every single fiber of your inner being is screaming no. You agree to go to social events you have no energy for, take on heavy burdens that aren't yours to carry, and smooth over unnecessary conflict at the absolute expense of your own peace. You train yourself to believe that keeping the waters calm around you is far more important than honorably tending to the quiet storm raging inside your own heart. Consider the deep, soul-crushing exhaustion that sets in after a long day of playing the mediator, the caretaker, or the agreeable companion. It is a very specific kind of tiredness, not just a physical fatigue from walking or working, but an emotional drain that settles heavy in your bones. It comes from constantly monitoring the room, tuning your pitch, altering your stance, and editing your thoughts just to ensure you stay harmless and liked. Think of all the moments you swallowed your true feelings just to avoid making a scene. You might have had a brilliant, original idea at work or in a creative space, but you kept your mouth shut because you were terrified of being perceived as pushy or foolish. You might have delayed pursuing a long-cherished dream, a hobby, or a relationship because someone in your life once made an offhand, sarcastic comment about it being a waste of time. You let their casual words become an uncrossable border around your life. Every time you quiet your authentic voice to keep someone else comfortable, a tiny piece of your self-trust erodes. Every time you betray your own boundaries to earn a moment of temporary approval, you send a quiet, damaging message to your subconscious. Your needs don't matter. Your feelings are secondary. You are only valuable when you are useful. Over time, that subtle self-betrayal builds up like dust on a forgotten mirror. You look at your life one day and realize you don't even know what your favorite things are anymore, what your true opinions are, or what you genuinely want out of your limited time on this earth. We convince ourselves that people-pleasing is an act of kindness, a noble generosity of spirit. But deep down, it isn't true kindness. It is a survival mechanism born of fear. It is a desperate transaction where we trade our authentic identity for a fragile guarantee that we won't be rejected, abandoned, or criticized. But the math never works out in your favor. The price of trying to please everyone around you is the gradual, painful loss of your own soul. You cannot build a genuine, meaningful life on the foundation of your own self-erasure. Have you ever wondered why a casual comment from a stranger or a slight shift in a friend's tone can send you spiraling for hours? Why does disapproval hit us so hard, even when it comes from people whose opinions we don't even particularly respect? It feels like an overreaction. But in reality, their judgment isn't creating new pain. It is simply poking at an unexamined wound that was already sitting quietly inside you, waiting to be touched. When someone's criticism cuts deep, it is rarely about the words themselves. It is because their words matched a quiet, hidden belief you secretly hold about yourself. If you carry a hidden fear that you are incompetent, any minor mistake pointed out at work feels like a devastating exposure. If you harbor a deep-seated worry that you are fundamentally unlovable, a delayed response to a text message feels like concrete proof of your worst nightmare. Outside judgments only shatter us when they align with the harsh things we are already whispering to ourselves in the dark. Carl Jung captured this delicate internal dynamic when he wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." When you leave your deepest insecurities and unhealed hurts unacknowledged, they don't simply vanish. They settle beneath the surface, operating like hypersensitive tripwires. You move through the world, walking on eggshells, constantly on guard, desperately trying to control how others view you so that no one accidentally triggers those hidden alarms. Caring so intensely about what other people think is rarely about them at all. It is a desperate flare sent up from the quiet, neglected parts of your own heart. It is a signal that there is an unloved, unaccepted piece of yourself that is crying out to be seen, acknowledged, and held by you first. Think about how much time you have spent trying to fix the outside world so you could finally feel safe inside. You try to polish your image, perfect your achievements, and gain everyone's stamp of approval, hoping that if enough people tell you that you are worthy, you will finally believe it. But external validation is like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom. No matter how much praise, reassurance, or approval is poured in from the outside, it will always drain away, leaving you feeling empty and anxious for the next fix. Healing begins when you stop looking outward for permission to feel okay and turn your attention inward instead. It starts when you sit down with those tender, hidden layers within yourself, the parts you were taught to hide, the parts you feel ashamed of, the parts that feel messy or flawed, and offer them the same gentle grace you so freely extend to others. When you begin to heal that internal split and rebuild peace with who you are at your core, the outside world loses its power to dismantle you. A house built on self-acceptance doesn't collapse when the wind changes directions. One of the most terrifying, yet profoundly liberating steps on the path of self-discovery is accepting a quiet, unavoidable truth. If you are going to live an authentic life, you will, at times, disappoint people. We are raised with an unspoken rule that causing disappointment in others is the ultimate moral failure. We absorb the idea that a good person always pleases, always compromises, and always meets the expectations laid out for them. So the moment we feel someone's disappointment, the heavy silence over the phone, the cold shift in their posture, the furrowed brow of a parent, or the sharp remark of a friend, our body reacts as if we have committed a crime. Our stomach drops, guilt rushes through our veins, and we scramble to fix it. We backpedal on our boundaries, undo our choices, and sacrifice our truth just to make the uncomfortable look on their face go away. But here is the gentle, radical truth you need to wrap your heart around today. Pleasing others at the absolute cost of your own soul is a slow, quiet form of self-betrayal. Living authentically means your path will not always align with what your family envisioned for you, what your friends expect from you, or what society demands of you. It means you might have to choose a career path that doesn't look impressive on paper, but makes your spirit feel alive. It means you might have to say no to an invitation, step away from a relationship that drains your life force, or embrace a creative direction that others simply do not understand. It takes immense, staggering bravery to stand tall in your own truth when the people around you are shaking their heads in confusion or disapproval. Think about the heavy price you pay when you live your life trying to manage everyone else's expectations. You become a curator of other people's dreams while your own lie abandoned in the dust. You spend your finite, precious energy building a life that looks good from the outside, but feels like an empty, cold cage on the inside. The people in your life have a right to their opinions, their preferences, and their visions for how things should be. But you, and only you, are the one who has to live inside your mind, your heart, and your skin every single second of the day. They do not carry your internal grief when you shrink yourself. They do not lie awake at night feeling the hollow ache of your unexpressed potential. You do. Allowing yourself to disappoint others is not an act of cruelty or selfishness. It is an act of profound self-respect. It is the realization that other people's disappointment is simply the space between their expectations and your reality. It is their feeling to process, not your debt to pay. You are not responsible for carrying the emotional climate of grown adults at the expense of your own mental peace. You do not need anyone else's permission, slip, to live a life that belongs entirely to you. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to change your mind. You are allowed to say, I love you, but I cannot destroy myself to keep you comfortable. The day you find the courage to let people be disappointed in you is the very day you step into your true power. Open the cage door, and finally, set yourself free. Stopping the endless cycle of seeking external validation isn't about hardening your heart, building emotional walls, or turning cold toward the world around you. It isn't about deciding that nobody else matters. True liberation is about quietly, patiently rebuilding an unshakable relationship with yourself, so that when the outside noise gets loud, critical, or confusing, it no longer has the power to sway your core. Self-trust is something we rarely talk about, yet its absence is the very reason why other people's opinions feel so terrifyingly loud. Every time you ignored your intuition to make someone else happy, every time you felt a deep internal no, but forced your lips to say yes, and every time you knew what was best for you, but let a louder voice talk you out of it, a small thread of self-trust snapped. Over the years, those broken threads accumulate. You stop trusting your own judgment. You begin treating yourself like a lost child who constantly needs a panel of experts to approve every decision, big or small. You check in with everyone else before checking in with your own heart. Rebuilding that trust does not happen in a single dramatic moment. It is a slow, gentle sanctuary you build brick by brick through tiny daily acts of radical self-honesty. It starts in the quietest, most mundane moments. The next time you face a choice, whether it is how to structure your afternoon, how to answer a difficult question, or what direction to take on a project, pause before you look outward. Catch yourself before you reach out to gather consensus. Close your eyes, place a hand over your chest, and ask yourself the simplest, most powerful question. What do I genuinely need right now? Not what makes you look good, not what keeps the peace, not what someone else would do. What do you need? When your inner voice whispers its answer, honor it, even if it is small. If your body tells you it is exhausted, rest. Even if you fear someone might think you are lazy. If your heart tells you that a conversation feels uncomfortable, set a gentle boundary, even if you fear being labeled as difficult. When you begin to make small promises to yourself and actually keep them, something miraculous happens inside your nervous system. You begin to realize, I have my own back. I am not going to abandon myself anymore. Imagine what it feels like to walk through the world backed by that kind of internal loyalty. When you trust yourself deeply, disapproval from the outside loses its razor-sharp edge. Someone can disagree with your choices. Someone can dislike your path, or someone can misjudge your intentions. And while it might still sting for a moment, it will no longer pull the rug out from under your feet. You stop trembling in the wind of other people's opinions because your roots have finally grown deep into your own soil. Self-love is not a passive, hazy feeling, or a luxury you indulge in when everything is going right. Self-love is the active, deliberate choice to stand by your own side, especially when standing by yourself means standing alone. It is looking at the tender, imperfect human in the mirror and promising, no matter who walks away, no matter who misinterprets us, I will never abandon you again. Have you ever sat down at the end of the day, completely drained, even though you did not do anything physically strenuous? Your bones feel heavy, your eyes are tired, and yet your mind is still running a relentless, high-speed marathon. Think about how much of your precious, finite, daily energy is poured into the exhausting task of managing what other people think. You spend your morning mentally rehearsing a conversation you have not even had yet, desperately trying to anticipate every possible reaction so you do not say the wrong thing. You draft a simple text message, delete it, redraft it, and stare at the screen for 10 minutes to make absolutely sure it sounds friendly, agreeable, and completely harmless before you finally gather the courage to press send. You agonize over what clothes to put on your body, not choosing what makes you feel comfortable and joyful, but choosing whatever will help you blend seamlessly into the background so you are not judged. This is an invisible, silent leak draining the very life force right out of your days. You carry the heavy, imaginary weight of hypothetical judgments on your shoulders everywhere you go. When you are constantly scanning the room for signs of disapproval, reading deep meaning into the slight pause in a friend's voice, or overanalyzing a brief glance from a passerby, you are burning through the emotional fuel you need to actually live your life. You are giving away the most valuable currency you possess, your attention, to phantom opinions that exist only in your own worried mind. It is a full-time, exhausting job that you never applied for, and it pays you nothing but relentless anxiety and profound weariness. Now, I want you to pause for a moment and just imagine what would happen if you simply laid that job down. Imagine taking a massive, sweeping step back and calling all of that scattered, wasted energy back to yourself. What if you took all the creative, vibrant life force you have been pouring into worrying about past conversations, analyzing future reactions, and decoding mixed signals, and you finally funneled it all back into your own heart? What kind of beautiful things could you build with that kind of power? What new passions could you explore? How deeply and peacefully could you finally rest? When you make the brave decision to stop managing external perceptions, something beautiful and breathtaking happens. A vast, quiet, and expansive amount of space suddenly opens up within you. You feel it physically. Your shoulders finally drop away from your ears. Your jaw unclenches, and the tight knot in your chest slowly begins to unravel. You suddenly have the mental clarity to sit quietly and read a book just because the story brings you pure joy. You have the calm focus to pick up a pen, a paintbrush, or a new hobby, creating something purely for the love of the process, without a single frantic thought about whether someone else will find it impressive or worthwhile. You find yourself walking outside, feeling the warmth of the sun on your face, actually present and rooted in the very moment, instead of being trapped inside a stressful, echoing loop of your own worried thoughts. You begin to speak up in conversations with a natural, easy grace, because you are no longer running your every word through a frantic, hypercritical filter of self-doubt. You let yourself laugh fully and loudly without instinctively covering your mouth or looking around to see who is watching. You breathe deeper. You move through the world with a light, grounded presence, because you have finally set down the heavy luggage of everyone else's opinions. You start to realize that the world is a much softer, more welcoming place when you are not constantly bracing yourself for an emotional impact that is never coming. You realize, perhaps for the very first time, that your time, your emotional energy, and your attention are incredibly precious gifts. They are beautifully rare, strictly finite, and far too valuable to be spent trying to manage the internal thoughts of people who are not even living your life. You do not owe the world your exhaustion. You do not owe anyone your anxiety. You owe yourself the beautiful, vibrant, and peaceful life that has been waiting patiently beneath all of that unnecessary noise. When you reclaim your energy, you do not just get your time back. You finally get your entire life back. Real freedom is not about being universally liked, endlessly celebrated, or validated by every person who crosses your path. True, unshakable freedom is something much quieter and infinitely deeper. It is the simple, profound grace of being entirely authentic. It is waking up in the morning, looking in the mirror, and knowing with absolute certainty that no matter who approves or disapproves of you today, you are completely secure, safe, and at peace within your own skin. For so long, you may have treated yourself like a house you were constantly trying to remodel for visitors. You rearranged the furniture of your personality to make strangers feel comfortable. You painted over your true feelings with bright, agreeable colors just to hide the raw, honest marks of your human experience. You locked away the wild, passionate, or vulnerable rooms of your heart, terrified that if anyone stepped inside and saw the real, unpolished truth of who you are, they would pack up and leave. You spent years living on the front porch of your own life, shivering in the cold, desperately waiting for someone else to hand you the key to your own front door. Carl Jung captured the heart of this sacred journey when he wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." The long, winding path to self-love is not about building a brand new, perfect version of yourself from scratch. You do not need to become someone bigger, smarter, colder, or more impressive just to survive in this world. The journey of self-love is simply the gentle, quiet process of returning home to the person you were before the world told you who you had to be. It is the brave act of unlearning the exhausting habit of seeking constant approval. It is setting down the heavy, suffocating burdens that were never yours to carry, and taking off the thick emotional armor that served its purpose in the past, but is only weighing you down today. Imagine what it feels like to finally step through that front door and come back to yourself. Imagine sitting down in the warm, quiet sanctuary of your own soul, pulling up a chair, and looking at every single part of your story with deep, unyielding tenderness. You embrace the quiet parts, the loud parts, the messy chapters, the mistakes, the sensitive corners, and the wild, unrepeatable magic that makes you you. You no longer ask the world, "Am I enough for you?" Instead, you place a hand over your heart, take a deep, grounding breath, and whisper to yourself, "I am finally enough for me." When you come home to yourself, the endless striving stops. The constant monitoring fades away. You realize that you do not need to perform, shrink, or hide just to justify your existence on this earth. You are allowed to take up space simply because you are here. You are allowed to express your truth, follow your own unique path, and feel your feelings without offering an apology to anyone. You are allowed to be seen in all your raw, beautiful, imperfect humanity. The opinions of others will still drift by like autumn leaves in the wind, but they will no longer carry the power to uproot your peace. You will hear their noise, but you will not let it shatter your internal quiet. You will see their expectations, but you will not betray your heart just to meet them. You step fully and unapologetically into your own presence, anchored by an inner knowing that can never be stolen from you. You are the author of your own story, the keeper of your own peace, and the love of your own life. And most importantly, you are finally, beautifully living a life that belongs entirely, completely to you. If you have stayed on this journey all the way to this quiet edge, take a deep, deliberate breath. Let the air fill your chest. Hold it for just a moment and release it with a long, soft exhale. Feel the weight of your body sitting right where you are. Feel the grounding presence of the earth beneath you. You have walked through the heavy halls of your past, looked directly at the invisible audience you were performing for, and unraveled the quiet ways you traded your own truth for temporary approval. That is not easy work. It takes a quiet, staggering kind of courage to pull back the layers of a life built on survival and ask, who am I when I am no longer trying to please the world? As this guide comes to a close, it is vital to remember that stepping into self-love and letting go of other people's opinions is not a single event. It is not a magical door you walk through once, never to look back. It is a soft, daily practice, a gentle art of continually choosing to return home to yourself over and over again. There will be days ahead where the old fear tries to sneak back in. You might be standing in a meeting, sitting at a family dinner, or looking at a screen, and suddenly feel that familiar tightening in your chest. You might feel the sudden, desperate urge to shrink, to apologize for existing, or to bend yourself into a shape that makes everyone else comfortable. When those moments happen, and they will, please do not judge yourself. Do not assume that you have failed or that you are right back at the beginning. That sudden panic is just an old, protective memory rising up inside your nervous system. It is simply that younger, tender part of you whispering, "Is it safe to be me right now?" When that old feeling visits you, you do not need to fight it, nor do you need to obey it. You simply need to pause, place a gentle hand on your heart, and remind yourself, I am safe now. I am grown. I am strong. And I do not need to erase myself to be secure. Imagine what your life looks like when you stop asking for permission to exist. Imagine waking up in the morning without the heavy mental arithmetic of trying to predict how the world will react to your presence. You put on clothes that make your body feel comfortable and alive. You speak with a natural, unhurried voice because you are no longer rushing to justify your thoughts. You share your art, your humor, your quiet reflections, and your bold ideas without waiting for a jury of strangers to declare them valid. You handle disapproval not with anger or defensiveness, but with a quiet, compassionate shrug, knowing that someone else's opinion of you is simply the weather in their sky, not the climate of your soul. You begin to realize that the highest form of self-respect is not becoming invincible, cold, or untouchable. It is remaining zut, open and authentic in a world that so often asks you to harden. It is allowing yourself to be seen in all your unpolished, honest, and beautiful humanity. When you live from that grounded center, you offer the world something far more valuable than a pleasing performance. You offer it your real, unfiltered light. And in doing so, you give everyone around you the silent, permission-giving gift to lay down their own heavy masks, too. This epilogue is not the end of your story. It is the quiet threshold of your real life beginning. You are stepping out of the theater of other people's expectations and walking back onto the sacred, beautiful ground of your own life. You are the sole author of the chapters yet to be written. You carry the ink, you hold the pages, and you get to decide what matters. Before you close this experience and step back into the rhythm of your day, let's seal this transformation together. Let's leave a lasting mark of the commitment you have made to your own heart. Right now, take a moment to pause, drop your shoulders, and leave one final affirmation in the comments below. I am worthy of taking up space exactly as I am. Type those words out slowly. Let each letter feel like a stake driven firmly into the ground of your own life. Read them as you type them. Feel the truth of them settle deep into your bones. And let that affirmation echo in your mind as you move forward. Thank you for having the bravery to look inward, for doing the quiet work of healing, and for choosing to honor the sacred life within you. Walk gently, breathe deeply, and remember, you do not need to search for home anymore. You are already there.